This program is brought to you in part by Cedar Ridge Paving and Milling, commercial and residential work. Yes, welcome to Race in Action Today. We're here today with special guest, tractor restorer and collector, Dave Alkas, who's been involved in this tractor business quite a while, and I'm sure you're going to find the show very interesting. And Dave, I got to ask you something. How did this all come about, you getting involved with these tractors?
Well, I'll tell you, Larry, when I was a kid, I was only 11 years old. We come from a big family. We had six kids in the family with my mom and dad. And so I was anxious to make money and work. So I went across the street to the farm over there, and they, the Munson brothers, Maple Shade, Maple Shade Farm.
Yeah.
And the two brothers over there, they had a bunch of Holsteins milking cows and all. And they said, all right, well, we'll give you fine stuff. And I was feeding the calves and scraping off the ends and putting sawdust down for the animals and all. And then I moved up for a couple of years and went into, when I got a little older, they started me in with working, running the tractors, the MT, John Deere and stuff. And of course, they supervised me quite a bit to make sure that it wouldn't get hurt or nothing.
Now, were they two-cylinder?
Those were two cylinders, most of them. Yeah, and believe it or not, those two cylinders that we had on the farm back there in the 60s, we have in the museum down there. The Big A is down there that the Munson brothers had, and the MT, which I put hours and hours on that seat raking hay and doing stuff with, and that's in ours restored and all. And I got a kind of a love for tractors. Back then they had John Deere's most of the time. That's why I kind of fell in love with John Deere.
Yeah, we have some pictures, Dave, of the green tractors, which I want viewers to see. They'll put them in the so they could see them. But they're not the only tractors you have.
Oh no. Well, I'll tell you, Larry, the museum there, we put that up 20 years ago. Actually, it'd be 21 years. Down to the Berlin Fairgrounds, and we wound up having the Amish. And my wife and I went down to Lancaster. My wife Paula, and she knows more about these charges, as much about the tractors as I do. And we turned around, and we used to go down there, and we saw down a rough and tumble down there. They had the big traction machines in a barn, and I said, God, we got to get this barn.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote to King Construction. I got the number and everything off the cupola on top, and they wound up, and we called up. They had a representative up in Danbury.
Yeah.
And I had her. It was a girl, Georgia Hinckley, and she came over and looked at the fairgrounds and everything. She says, "Oh yeah, this is doable." And back then it was a reasonable price. He said, "We'll have the Amish come up." They didn't, and we wound up pushing it. Friends of mine pushed the dirt off, and another friend of mine, Tommy Meyer, he dug the foundation around. We put footings and walls up and everything. And we built that whole section. And the building now is 60 feet wide, and it runs 220 feet long.
Yeah, well,
and
you added on.
Yeah, we added on to it.
And thank God for some of your lion buddies were stepped forward in the beginning.
Right, in the beginning.
Because a lot of people really weren't up for this, were they?
Well, no, not really. They were all up to it when I brought the idea up and said, to the farmers around town. And back then there was quite a few farms still left. And I told them what I wanted to do on the fairgrounds, and they thought it was a wonderful. They started making donations.
Yeah.
And I've got a list on the wall down there of all the people, whether it was Peto's down the street from me, or the Dornfrieds, Maple Shade Farm, there was the Kristopics, all the people around stepped up to the plate, and we wound up with some sizable amount of money, not enough to pay for the whole thing, but and then we went to production credit and financed the rest of it. But we put that building up, and that building is perfect to this day. We house right now about 52 tractors, and all different types now. And it would take us a lot more than a half an hour to figure out.
Yeah.
But the stuff
Oh,
that
no,
we
no.
got, we got Alice
You certainly
Charmers,
have
we
some
got
interesting
we've got Alice
tractors.
Charmers, and we got Olivers and 770s, and we got like I said before, John Deere's. You got the A's and the 40s and the MTs and the Cubs, all kinds of Cubs and little LAs and the L's, from the smallest John Deere to the biggest in them years. Nowadays, I mean, we couldn't even go.
Now, beside the tractors, Dave, there's farm equipment in there. There's old tools,
Yes.
the old post and beam tools they use for construction. I
Yes.
mean,
We've
and
got-
you even have toys like this.
We've got cabinets all lit up in here. We wound up, I hate to say it, but we had to get jewelry display cabinets that were locked up in back, because the kids, if you had them in front there, they started playing with them and they'd wreck them, you know. They want to play with them, of course, but we wound up, we've got an enormous collection of not only John Deere's, Farmalls, anything you could think of. And people keep bringing them in, and they want to see these things, and they're all lit up and everything. As far
Well,
as
you know, I have to give you a lot of credit, Dave. I mean, there's even a little Caterpillar, what do you call excavator? What do you call it?
that's
Grader
little,
there.
No, it's a little dozer. It's one
Little
of the
dozer.
smallest ones. Yeah, we got that there too. It's a 1929
Yeah.
Caterpillar, and back in 29 or so, they used to call them an earthworm. In
Yeah.
fact,
Oh,
yeah,
gee.
earthworm, because the caterpillar was made like a worm.
Yeah.
And this thing, I bought it down in Darien. It was in a pile of, I was working then with Caterpillar, we bought it. They didn't pay much for it. And I restored it, and along with all the workers we had at Penn, H.O. Penn. And to this day, I still start it up and run it around the
Yeah.
fairgrounds. It's like
Oddly
a
enough,
little
the
toy.
tractor, the dozer, has got history to a farm I used to go when I was a little kid.
Yeah,
The
there's a lot of
Smith
them.
Brothers Farm.
Yeah.
Am I thinking right, Dave?
Well, you're thinking of the D14, Alice Charmers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
that
the
one.
dozer too,
Oh,
right?
no, yeah, that one there, that's a K model, cleat
Oh,
track.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one there is you're right, Larry. You just got the right church, the wrong pew. But they were, that one there is also housed down there, the Coomer family in New
Yes,
Britain.
yeah.
They had that there. And Felix, I said to him, what are you going to do with that? And he says, Dave, he says, you're such a nice guy. He says, I'm going to donate it to you.
Oh, wow.
So we got it, and it's in the museum. It's been there for 20 years,
Yeah.
18 years. We still started up and run it and whatever. And we've accumulated a lot of tractors that people step up to the plate and they help us out, all the way from tractors to just recently. I restored myself and a good friend of mine is a carpenter up the street there, Al Baroni. He does a lot of carpentry work in Kensington. And him and I, we wound up sandblasting a 1935 K model horse-drawn manure spreader.
Oh, we got a picture of that.
Yes.
Oh,
and,
yeah, we got a
and
picture
you got to
of that.
see this. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it was like a total disaster. The wheels, the iron wheels were stuck on the axles and everything. I had to heat them up and make presses up to pull them off. And I had my buddy at Superior Finishing in New Britain. They sandblasted it, primered, painted, John Deere green and all. We got decals from Geordie
This
Decal.
thing looks so good, you could put it in your living room.
Oh yeah,
Tell
it's
you.
beautiful. Yeah, we put all, and we varnished all the wood and everything, which normally they don't do that when you buy
Yeah.
them. But that's quite an asset. We had it on display in front of the museum last year, and it drew a lot of attention. And of course, it ended up being tractor drawn.
Yeah.
It had a drawbar on it, but a wooden hitch and stuff. But originally it was a manure spreader. And I had to tell you a little story about them. Those particular ones that had a seat in the front, and you ran your levers. You run the speed of the apron coming forward that delivers the manure to the beaters, and one for the beaters.
Wow.
And you had like a 4-speed. You can go slow, faster, faster.
Yeah.
Well, trouble with those, whether you had a horse or was a tractor drawn, if it was a windy day, of course, you got covered because this thing would throw the manure up in the air, and it
So
would come
you were
down on
getting
your back.
getting blasted.
You actually got blasted with this thing,
Oh,
and yeah, that was one of the things that are in. That's one of our favorite that we did. We put a lot of work in it. Al and myself, we put a lot of work in that. It came out real good though. We loved that.
You know, of course, the history is special. And I don't know if people know, but John Deere was born in 1804 in Vermont, Rutland, Vermont.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes,
That's
you're
where
right.
he was born.
Yeah.
He grew up to be a blacksmith,
Yep.
and he eventually started making tools
Yeah.
for the farm.
Yeah, they
It wasn't a tractor company right away.
No, they had plow. They did a lot of plow.
And
like
we have a picture of the plow. He perfected the fact that the plow had to have a finish on it and metal, so the dirt didn't clog on it.
wouldn't stick to it. What you got to do with the plows on it, whether they're a single bottom or double bottom, they have what they call a cutter on the top. It comes down and it rides. It's a wheel, sharp wheel, in front of your mow board, and you're not mow board, but your board, and that would cut the soil. And then when you got up to it, it actually rolled it over. And they had different size plows. You could go with a 12 or 14, 16 inch. 16 was basically the biggest. Now they go a lot bigger than that. And they did a lot of work out of Syracuse.
Originally, the John Deere company made plows and utensils and tools.
Utensils. Yeah, oh yes,
They didn't start making tractors, I don't believe, until the early 1900s, right?
Yes, right. The tractors that we got, they were making Waterloo Boy, they call them.
Yes,
That's the first ones they had. And the Waterloo Boy was still a horizontal engine, but basically, you're going back to the old hit and miss engines that they had.
Yep.
It was basically set in the framework, and it was perfected. Wide front end, very slow, chain drive.
Wow.
And it was
drive.
very slow though. There was chain drive back then, yeah. And then they moved up. They kept perfecting it, and they got into the GPs. In fact, we have one down there. It's a 1929 GP John Deere, wide front end, on rubber though. And it was on steel to begin with, but it was a cutoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that over. Yeah, back then.
So the history of the company itself is special, and
they did a lot.
I'm looking here, Dave. You have some books here that are kind of special. You want to let people know what they are?
Yeah, a couple of my friends over there, they stop by and they drop off things. They go to estate sales and stuff like that, and I do myself. And they found that the John Deere itself made a handbook for the operation and care of repair of farm machinery. And they made 58 different versions of this book, starting from edit 1 all the way to 58.
Now, what was the purpose to making the book, though? Was it to teach people?
Promote, yes, to teach them the operation and how to repair these tractors. These not only tractors, but implements, whether it was cotton bins or hay binders, or harvesters, balers. I mean, these books, I only got 2, but there was a ton of them. They were printed by John Deere, and they were given to VOAG schools and stuff like that. If you go online and look up the history of John Deere and the literature, and you're really astonished at the things that they did back in them days. And the book contains tons of stuff in there. You got pictures of old tractors and stuff in there, and working, and they tell you the models, and you can see how old they are by what you're looking at. Yeah, that was nice of John Deere to do that. And there again, these books here are actually collector's items. And certain books are worth, my wife looked it up the other day, and we're over $300 just for one of these at an estate sale.
Collector items.
This one somebody gave me, he paid $75 for it back then, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was John Deere's little, more of a promotional.
Yeah, I mean, today, John Deere's are made all everywhere, even overseas, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know.
They're worldwide.
Yeah.
And yeah, we. That's one of the reasons why we had to. I started out with all this stuff in here, and then, like I said, people come up to me in the last couple of years. Last year, the Olson farm, Timmy Olson over in Southington, they came up to me, him and his buddy John Welsh. They had a D14 Alice Chalmers they used on the farm for baling and all, Southington. And he said, gee, Dave, we can't do anything. You want it? I went over, I looked at it, I said, this thing's doable, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't frozen or nothing, so I brought it in and we went through it. And
I believe we have a picture
like
of an
brand new,
orange tractor,
there
and
might be.
that's it.
That
I
might
mean,
be
that's
it. Yeah, yeah. I've done over. I can't mention when I start talking to people at the museum, and I'm there all the time from the time we open the doors to nighttime at 10 o'clock when we shut down. I wind up getting hoarse because these people like what they donated. They want to pick out like all the old tools and size, and I mean it's remarkable. It's tools and cans, old cans and oil cans and everything that are on the wall in this building. I mean, and we don't charge nothing for that. I mean, if anybody wants to, they can come down and make arrangements, bring a busload. I've had the VOAGs come in, one from Middletown, and I put on a tour for them and actually narrated for them, and they loved it. It's for how all the tractors, we got them and where they came from. But getting back to this Alice Chalmers, we did that all over, and he came down, and I let him run it back last year. He bought another farm up in Suffield, and Timmy Olson came down. He had a smile from ear to ear. He says, gee, Dave, you know, this thing's better than when I had it. I mean, it looks like brand new, you know.
Oh, you
and
do a great job.
That's the appreciation you get out of it, though. People coming up to you, and even with the manure spreader and stuff there, they say, I can't believe this is the same thing.
No, it's hard to believe that.
But
something in the end will come out.
But
like
even
that.
when you got the museum going, all right, you take in, we venture out into things. My wife loves the milk bottles from all the farms that we had in Kensington. You got the Rockland dairies. We got Lower Lane dairies.
Dave, when I moved to Berlin in 1957, I believe, there was more cows than people.
I could say that, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was dairy farms everywhere.
Yeah. Somewhere said, I thought it was a number like 28 different farms up there, and I think that might be shy. It might be, because I know I talked with the Historical Society, and they did history on a lot of them, because they coincide with me. We work together with them.
I could remember ice cream, Rockland Dairy.
Rockland Dairy ice cream, yeah.
You remember something they called the cow special?
That's right, Larry.
Huh? Do you remember what that was?
That had to be a big plate, okay, and it was they put 7 scoops of ice cream, one of each different one in there, and they take a banana and split it on each side, and they fill that right up, and then put all their sweets on it.
Oh yeah.
And nowadays, I tell you, if you had sugar, you couldn't drink, you couldn't eat them.
Let me tell you, when you played Little League and the coach said to you, "Home run, cow special," boy, you were listening.
You earned it, and it wasn't really expensive. I think at that time it was only like $3.50, which is a lot of money then, though.
Yeah.
And they said that if you can eat one of them and you can eat a second one, you had to complete it. They would give you the second one for free. But if you didn't complete it, you had to pay for it.
Well, and then the other thing too. I mean, Ferndale Dairy, they had the biggest ice cream parlor I have ever seen.
Right, you're right.
In Kensington, on the Chamberlain
Highway.
It was huge.
We've got pictures of they were delivering their milk and everything from Ferndale Dairy. We've got bottles for that too. I mean, everyone, Ventures, you name it. We turn around and we have a picture of Divcos all lined up in front of the place.
Yeah.
They had something like 12 or 13 delivery trucks, old Divcos around.
Oh yeah, milk was a big deal. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, that was Well, Farmer Brown across the street from me, they used to deliver it to Ventress Dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Artie Ventress over there on Meadow Lane.
Ventress Dairy.
Yeah.
It was a brick building. I can remember as a kid. And he had like an honor system. He had chocolate milk, Gatorade, or what do you call that, Orangeade.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody there. You just left the money in a tin.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my dear.
In them days, yeah, yeah.
Oh, boy.
But we with my wife there, she gets involved in all this stuff and putting the name plates up and doing all the printing and paperwork and laminating all the stuff for me, and she knows about as much about all this stuff, and I don't have to tell her. She knows where every tractor is and where they came from, and she could tell you the history just like I do. You know.
She's been on some trips with you, picking these things up and scouring the countryside, and
Yep.
you know.
Now you got back before you were mentioning about cut downs. You know, before
the
they
doodle
had
bugs.
tractors, they called them a doodle bug.
Yeah.
And well, when I was racing cars before that, I was in there. We were on the doodle bugs ourselves, and we did very well. We won championships with pulling doodle bugs, and they had a distance of size and weight and all that. But
you actually had to hook up to a weight and
we hooked up
and
to the
drag
weight.
it, right?
We pulled anywhere with the doodle bugs they called back then, two-wheel drive, and we perfected them with chain drive to get the weight up in front. And I mean, we used to wind up with the Mack Crane transaxle.
Yeah.
And you'd wind up with the transmission in front and with two transmissions in it. And you put all your weight up front and as much as you can, because they have a tendency to pick up.
Oh, yeah.
Because the more you put the pressure to the rear, you get better traction, but then you lose it in front.
Yep.
So, yeah, we had that perfected pretty good there. The
So,
Ralph
I mean,
Eli
they
and
served
them,
their purpose good for the farmers.
well, that was, they put two transmissions in, and the smaller ones, when they did it, they were very economical because the gas tank was up top. You didn't need a fuel pump.
Yeah.
Gravity feed. The engine was so simple, a 2-year-old kid could fix that. I mean, the wires and those spark plug wires, all they did a piece of copper wiring, or copper, that went from the distributor cap down to the spark plugs. And points, nothing. They didn't have the water pump was built right into the head.
Well, Model A's were very simple.
Yeah, they were if you wanted to learn anything about mechanics, of course, now you got electronic ignition and fuel injection, and also, I mean, these things are outclassed for their age. You know, in their day, they were carburation and distributors and magnetos. First they had mag, and then they started to phase that out and went to distributors, even in the tractors.
Yep.
The later John Deeres, they up to 50, 49 and 50, they had a Delco Remy 12-volt coil in them.
Yep.
And one thing you got to note, these old tractors, you got to remember one thing, and I keep telling everybody, including the old Model A's, they were positive ground, and I cannot ram that into the people's heads that have Model A's and stuff, you know.
They want to hook them up.
They think the newer ones nowadays, you got positive, it's to the starter, negative to the ground. And actually, the engine, you can start it, but your charging system is discharges instead of charging.
Yeah,
you know?
It's reverse, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, it was interesting in the old days what they did, you know. The history, Nick, like I said, with these tractors is very special, Dave.
Well, if you get involved in this stuff, everything is like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yep.
If you go to auctions and all, and you need a fender for something, you bought that fender, whether you're going to put it on now or later. But you know, you picked up parts, and once you accumulated all you needed, now you brought that tractor in to restore it. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure, don't go overboard. If it runs good and everything, the clutch, the brakes, and all that, fine tune it.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do they have flea markets like for tractor parts and stuff, or no?
No, most of the time you can go to an auction. Some of the tractors out, especially out in New York State,
Yeah.
they have a regular Canandaigua up there. You got, and you tractor parts places. You can go to a place down in Myerstown, Pennsylvania, Wranglers. You can buy any hoods, a complete engine, whatever you want,
Oh, yeah.
And the other one is McFadden's,
Yeah.
where I bought my 720 from,
Yep.
up in Sharon Springs, New York.
Yeah.
It's almost near Niagara Falls. But
Well,
yeah,
I'll tell you what, Dave. I watched you in the summer. You still got that little John Deere mower going every week. You're doing something with that mower.
well, the thing of it is, you got to stay busy, And I always said to my motto is, I love to work, and if I'm not working, I get bored.
Yeah.
And I got to do something and restore something,
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Dave, as usual, when we're having fun, time flies.
That's for sure, Larry.
We're going to have to come back another day and talk a little bit further about tractor collecting. And maybe we could do a show right at the museum.
Yes, we could.
If you want. We could do that too. As usual, you're right on your game, buddy. And
thank you, Larry.
we always have a great time when you're here.
Oh, yes.
I want to thank you, the viewers, for coming, and remind them when the Berlin Fair comes to come down to the Agricultural Museum in Berlin and see Dave, and I'm sure he would love to hear from you.
Yes, definitely.
You all right, Dave?
That's right. You're more than welcome.
Yep. And we want to thank everybody for watching, and please tune in again next week to Racing Action Today. Thank you. This program is brought to you in part by Just Results Weight Loss Center in Berlin, Connecticut.
The water's warm at Jaws Pond, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pond, conveniently located on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.